Hey guys, Chris and the Ultimate Recycler. We're here in the backyard of my shop and we're going to do a vegetable growing experiment with some of the results of all my worm testings. Now let me explain and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Here I've prepared a couple of garden beds. Now these I've done, particularly the back one, well actually only the back one, I've done countless worm tests over 2 or 3 years. That garden bed has had everything from shredded paper to lemons to red wine to Coca-Cola, lettuce, peaches, all sorts of stuff tested on the worms, and it's built up to quite a fair volume of castings, and it's all, whatever I've put in there is all reverted to soil basically. I've dug it over and I've just raked it out, and the front bed I've actually just bricked off more recently, and it has been watered and dug over numerous times over the last month or two in preparation for this. What you're looking at there is the natural soil in this block. Now, it's probably not virgin soil as such because this is a very old yard, it's an old building. There's probably been all sorts of stuff in here over the years. In fact, as I was raking it around, there was old rusty nails and bits of china and a bit of ash from fires. So it's untouched as far as my worm castings experiments go. So let's do a comparison between these two beds, and you can already see one actually looks a lot darker. And I'm going to grow some carrots and I'm going to grow some beetroot, or beet perhaps, depends where you're from. I've got some carrot seed here, and we have some Mrs. Fothergill's beetroot. Easy to grow, I'm glad it says that, and that prompts me to also make a disclaimer that I'm not a gardener. I mean, I enjoy getting in the garden, but Christine's kind of the main gardener in our partnership, and the only way I really get green fingers or green thumb is if I've been scrapping at a printer. So I think I can do this. I've raked it around, I've made a couple of little shallow channels there with the rake, and I'm going to plant one end of each bed with some carrot seeds and one end of each bed with some beetroot seeds, and I'll keep them watered. I'll try and keep the weeds down. I'll let them grow. They're in almost an identical spot in the yard. The amount of difference of sunlight's hardly anything because this spot kind of gets shaded a bit by the fruit trees and whatnot. So it'll be an interesting experiment to see if the plants in the back bed perform substantially better than the plants in the front. To my mind, it's going to be, it even looks much nicer soil. There are some remnants of paper and various other things there, but it'll be a great experiment. We'll see how it goes. If I forget to water them and they suffer a bit, well, they'll both actually have the same suffering, so it should be a fairly accurate comparison. Let's sow these seeds and we'll rake the soil back over. We'll give them a water, and it's going to be a few weeks before we have any action, so I'll keep you in touch with how it's going, and we'll just see if there's much of a difference. That's got the carrot seeds sprinkled in. They're fairly light. I think you can see them in there, and I may have put a little bit extra in the front garden, only because I may not have divided them in half properly, but you can see them in the bottom of the trench there. Now, I think they'll be okay. I've put sticks to mark the end of each row, but there may not be quite as many carrots in the good garden as what's in the other one, so we'll see how they work out. And I think you're supposed to sprinkle carrot seed a bit thicker. Plus the other thing, these seeds were home picked, I guess, or harvested, so I don't think they were like commercial carrot seeds, so hopefully they're not out of date, hopefully they germinate. So I'll now do the same with the beetroot, and I will mark the ends of the rows with the sticks so that we can see where they are, and because I don't really know what these seedlings are going to look like, I don't want to pull them out thinking they're weeds, so at least the sticks will give me a bit of an idea where I've planted them. The biggest challenge, of course, will be to keep Coco off the garden. She has a track history of destroying my tests, so hopefully I might have to fence around it somehow. Alright, well, I'll get these planted and watered in. We'll check again, I don't know, maybe a month, and see what's happening. Okay, I had to share this. Have you guys seen anything so rough and ready? What better to fence off the garden from Coco than use a heap of old deck chairs that I've got lined up for a future scrapping video. So how's that? That's pretty bogan, I think, or redneck maybe for you Americans. What do you call them in the UK? It's been 2 weeks since we started this experiment, and I thought I'll give you an update. We have some growth. We have the beetroot sprouting quite well in both gardens. So that's all coming up well. No sign of the carrots here. There may be a couple of little, well, look, I'm not sure. They might be weeds. But I can actually see the carrots in the back garden. So maybe I might have planted the carrot seeds a little bit deep, I'm not sure. But you can definitely see some coming up there. But I haven't really spotted any in the front garden. Now, interestingly, the soil types are totally different. This one is still quite loose and crumbly, and I'll show you what happens when I water it shortly, whereas this one, being more of a clay, actually sets quite hard. So maybe the little carrot seeds are having a bit of an effort to get through the crust. But the beetroot seeds did all right. So I'll give it a little bit of a water just with a watering can, so it's a nice soft shower. And you'll see in this garden, it gets wet. Obviously it's water, but the water soaks in quite well, whereas I do the same on this soil here, and it actually pools and starts to flood. So the water absorption is much different. So there you go. All right, I'll give them another water. I'll give a report in well, whenever I think it's ready for a report. Hopefully we get some more carrot action. We'll see you then. Alrighty guys, an update on the garden. It's been 3 weeks since you last saw it, so 5 weeks all up. The back garden is clearly a lot better than the front. The beetroot's going really well. There's a bare patch there near that pipe, and I suspect there were some snails eat the seedlings or something. But I haven't used any chemicals. I've basically just sown, watered regularly, and forget about them until it's time to film. So they're looking pretty good. I don't know with beetroot whether I was supposed to thin them out or not. Don't know. As I said, I'm not a gardener. The carrots have really struggled. They are growing there, but I suspect the seed was very old and perhaps not that viable, because if we look in the front garden, there's virtually nothing. I think there is one carrot just there, and there could be one over there. Now, it's had exactly the same amount of water, exactly the same conditions, but as I pointed out last time, the clay has gone quite hard. Possibly I planted them a little bit deep, but I think the seed's just a bit old. But we are going to get some carrots there. Beetroot's going great there. Have a look at this one. They're actually going okay, but they're noticeably smaller. And again, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to thin them out, but it doesn't matter for this experiment. We can see a noticeable difference already with the worm castings on the back. I don't know how long it takes to actually harvest these. Obviously carrots are going to take a bit longer. I don't know how big beetroot gets. We'll do another update when I have something to report. It's a further 2 weeks. I just thought I'd give you a quick look. The beetroot in the back garden is absolutely looking fantastic. I do need to give it water today. It's been a pretty hot day. The beetroot at the front is looking okay, but it's rather stunted. If you didn't have that back garden, you would probably think they're doing okay, but because we've got a comparison, there's quite a substantial difference. As for the carrots, well, the ones that have come up through here look like they're surviving and starting to flourish. In the front little section there, we do have one carrot there and a couple over there, so it's a bit of a failure there for the carrots, but we do have some. So we'll keep watering and we'll check it in another few weeks. As I said last time, I don't know how long it takes before we can actually harvest anything, but no doubt I'll film it when we do. Okay guys, it's been a further 4 weeks, which takes it to around about 11 or 12 weeks all up. And actually I had a look at the packet, and I do have to apologise to Mr. Fothergill, because I think I called him Mrs. Fothergill when I first introduced this. It says so late winter to autumn, which I kind of sown it in late winter, yeah, would have been early summer. Harvest 10 to 12 weeks. Well, we should be right to harvest. So I'll pull the fence down and we'll see what the result is. Interestingly, before we start, the front beetroot seems to have caught up a little bit. The bushes look much healthier. They've grown a fair bit in the last few weeks. The ones at the back have kind of So I don't know if they've slowed up a little, but perhaps the front ones have just caught up a bit. The carrots, they're looking great at the back. Of course, we don't know what the carrots are like, and I think we've only got 2 really to pick at the front, 2 or 3. So we'll move the fencing and we'll harvest and see how we went. Okay, this should be interesting. Now, it's a bit windy today. Hopefully we don't get too much wind noise in the clip. Let's start with the carrots at the front and see what we've got. Now, I hope they come out okay, because this clay soil has set quite hard on top, and I may have to dig. Oh, look at that. Bugs Bunny would be hugely disappointed with that. So maybe the carrots needed to grow a bit longer, because what we have is baby carrots. And the other one looks a little bigger. Hang on, I'll get a bit closer. Doesn't really matter, I guess. Yeah, see, that's very disappointing. Certainly not much of a meal there. I was about to say it doesn't really matter if the carrots should have been left a lot longer, because we're really just after a comparison. Now, the foliage is certainly much larger at the back. Let's see if the carrots are any larger. Oh, it's a bit better. So perhaps these could have been left a lot longer. This one's bigger. Oh, there we go. That's becoming more like a real carrot. No, it's a double one. And at the back, let's pull them all up. Yeah, they're pretty tiny, but they look healthy. And that's a better one. And these two, they've gone a bit clumpy. Maybe there wasn't enough water deep enough for these carrots. I'm not sure. As I said, I'm not a gardener. Perhaps you do need to give them a really deep soaking to encourage the root to go down further, but at least we've got enough to warrant peeling and eating out of there. And certainly we had more of the seeds germinate than we did of the other ones. So we'll put them aside. I'll leave them separate so we don't get our samples mixed up, although it's pretty easy to tell. And we'll get on to the beetroot. Now, I have learnt since planting them, Christine mentioned it, and I also saw a couple of clips on YouTube, that I was supposed to thin these out a lot. So they actually haven't had much room to grow. Apparently the beetroot, the part you eat, actually almost grows on the surface, and these are really crowded. So probably not the best as far as a successful experiment in growing produce we can eat. Let's pull a couple out. But as I said before, it's a comparison. Both gardens were the same. And what have we got there? Tiny, tiny, tiny beetroot. Now, as I said, that certainly will be partly due because they're crowded. Well, that one's a little bit bigger. And I'm not sure if I should leave some of them in, because I think Christine wanted to use some of them if they were usable. And these little ones, well, there's virtually nothing there. Now the roots haven't gone down very far at all. There's really no fruit. I don't know if you call beetroot a fruit, but there's really no produce to speak of. Let's try one this end. It's got maybe a bit more room at the end. Alright, so there's a little bit of them there. That'll do for a sample. Oh, we might just get one from the back row because this one at this end looks rather large. Okay, so that's the best we've got. Probably can actually do something with that. I will show Christine this garden and she can salvage what she wants to and maybe leave the rest. But there's not much produce to speak of there. Let's see what's happened at the back. Again, they've been crowded, so that's going to limit their potential to get large. So we'll just pull a few out at the end. Get this stick out of the road. And it looks like they're a bit bigger here. Yep. Oh, this one looks better. Whoa, look at that. So we have some usable produce here. This garden has certainly worked a lot better than the front. Whoa, look at those. They're actually quite good. That's fantastic. So I might grab one from the other end as well, and we'll lay them all out as a bit of a comparison. And I'll leave the rest of those plants for Christine to decide what to do, or for Coco to dig up, whoever gets to them first. Alright, let's go pull this stick out of the road. There's certainly a lot more foliage here. That's pretty good. So I can certainly understand why they need to be thinned out now. And, oops, we missed one there. And maybe just one from the back row. They don't look anything special, we might leave those. Let's get a bigger one from this end at the front, see if we can, see if the front garden can redeem itself. Alright, so that's as big as the front garden getting. That's not too bad. We'll lay them all out for a comparison now. And now I'll look at the final comparisons. We have very small, almost underdeveloped beetroot in the non treated garden, we shall call it, and the one that essentially was full of worm castings. Look at that. That's actually pretty good. I'm pretty proud of that for my gardening expertise. If I had have thinned them out, perhaps they might have all grown really large. The foliage is certainly thicker, so I think that's a definite tick for the worm castings without a doubt, and the carrots even more so. These things are not even worth trying to eat. These ones, at least they're large enough to do something with. They're a little bit deformed. I think the seed was rather old. There was a lot more foliage on the ones in the worm castings, and I've noticed that at home where Christine's been growing a lot of veggies, the leafy type veggies do really well in the worm castings, whereas sometimes the crops where you actually don't want the foliage so much, the energy seems to go into the foliage and you don't get a lot of fruit. So I think you've got to pick your produce to grow, and probably not in almost straight worm castings, which I did, although it's been dug through a lot and there would be soil amongst it. But anyway, interesting experiment. We've got the stuff grown just in the natural soil and the stuff grown where I've done my worm tests for a couple of years. Huge difference. I think that demonstrates that the worms are pretty helpful in our gardens. Okay, thanks for watching this, guys. I hope you got a little bit out of this. I found it an interesting experiment because, as I said, my gardening experience is pretty low, and I had a lot of fun doing this. Luckily, Coco didn't get in and destroy it, so that's a plus as well. So thanks for watching. I'm going to try one of these carrots. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now. That's good.